Hey, what's up? It's Benjamin back. I'm here to do a video on how to start 3D printing. And the first step in this process is typically you're going to be looking at different printers and what type of printer you should get. Some of the major things you got to look out for, some of the features you're going to look out for is whether you want an FDM printer or a resin printer. I'm not super familiar with the resin printers, but I do know the FDM printers really well. The resin printers are a little more of the smaller items. You're trying to make a little less, they have less build area, so you can't build massive projects, but they have such a better finish compared to the FDM printers. You won't have a bunch of the layer line marks or anything like that. The resin printer seems to be way better at making miniature things. I see a lot of these printers being used now for dental implants and making teeth. They work really well for things like that. They make D&D miniatures. I know that is a big thing for them as of right now. The FDM printers can do things, but they can't make some of the smaller artistic things that go real big into the D&D miniatures. Some of the big features you want to look out for when looking at your printer, you definitely want to look at what the print volume is. You want to make sure that you have a big enough printer to do the prints that you want. Sometimes people like to make bigger projects, other people like to make smaller projects. You also have to think about color changes. Only some of the FDM printers have multi-color filament, like the AMS for the BambuLab, and this new Anycubic Cobra Max has a new bundle for a 4-color filament. It'll go up to 8 colors. The BambuLab goes up to 16 in most cases, as far as I know. You also want to look at how precise the printer is, the speed of it, how it calibrates. Sometimes you have the auto level features for your bed. Sometimes you have to manually. I've had an Ender 3, which I had to manually do the bed. I've also had the BambuLab A1 Mini and the A1, and those I like a whole lot more because I don't have to mess with the bed at all. It's auto calibrated. They'll calibrate themselves every time they go up and down. They're going to calibrate themselves. You also want to definitely look at how hot the nozzle will go. See if there's hardened nozzles. See if you want steel hardened nozzles. It depends on what filament you want. You also need to think about containers, the ventilation, how you exhaust things. If you're looking at doing a little more durable filament, or you want filament that it takes a little bit higher durability, you're going to be looking at getting a container or things like that. Not all filament you really need to do that for. PLA, you don't really have to do anything for that. That's you can print that without having much worry about the enclosure for it. It's not as toxic as the other filaments are. The resin printers, I would recommend starting with an FDM printer, though. The resin printers seem to be higher on the toxicity level. They're really bad for you to inhale and you definitely need high ventilation for the project, so I would not recommend starting with one of those. But if you're looking at making miniatures or small projects like that and you want to be with a really fine finish, you're going to want to look towards the resin printers. But we're going to focus on FDM printers today here. I've got a couple pulled up here. As I said before, I've had a history with BambuLab, and I really enjoy working with their printers. I've got a friend at work, and he does he's got an Anycubic Cobra S1, and he's just purchased the Anycubic Cobra 3 Max, and he's got the combo, so he's looking into printing with this new printer, and he has really high hopes that it's going to work really well. He always tells me every day that it's way better than the BambuLab stuff and we should jump on board, but I'm not quite ready to jump ship for anything. I do like my A1 and my A1 Mini. The A1 is what I'm currently running. My A1 Mini is now off to the side, as my A1 can print with a larger print bed, so I'm really enjoying the larger print bed here. But anyways, we're going to get into this. Some of the best printers to start with, I do recommend going with the BambuLab printers. Anycubic is starting their handy app, and they're starting new projects. It looks like it's a little harder to get into right away. Uh, as far as BambuLab goes, I do recommend starting out with one of their printers. They range from $249 to $2,000, and you can up that price to start getting into the AMS filament system, so you can start printing in 4 different colors. But I do recommend the BambuLabs because it's just, they've got the Bambu Handy app, and the Bambu Handy app makes life a whole lot easier when you're first starting. You can just download and go. You also want to consider what printer to go with depending on what type of print you're going to want to do. Are you going to be designing your own prints, or do you want to go and look at a website to go find a print? Are you going to make your own print? Do you model? Do you draw? That sort of thing goes into the works of what you want to do. Unfortunately, the BambuLab printers, they are locked in on the Bambu Handy app and their system. You can only use their slicing software. I've got an old Ender 3, and I've used the Prusa slicing software, and I've also used Cura, which are very user friendly. I've just recently been working on the Bambu Handy app and the Bambu slicing software, and it's worked out great for me. So we'll get into this we're going to start with the H2D, which is their top of the line model right now. Right now it's got the laser kit. It also has a drawing kit and a cutting kit, so you can do a lot more all around things. It's not just a 3D printer. It's got a dual nozzle on it. You can get the AMS filament system with it, so it does come with that stuff on there. I think it comes with the laser assist and the safety system. It comes with a hardened steel tool head, so it's got a max temperature of 350 degrees Celsius, so you're looking at higher quality filaments. You can go up to TPU. TPU is one of the ones I typically use at work. I do a lot of TPU. I do the PLA mostly, PLA plus. You've got the nylon hardened filament I think you can use on this. I think there's a lot of different carbon fiber infused ones that you can use when you get into this. You're definitely going to want ventilation for this, so it does come with the ventilation ready to go. So it does come with a container, and it should have a kit for your ventilation right off the bat, but you'll want to double check that it's got everything for you. Part of the H2D is you're going to have really high speeds. So it says the max speed of the tool head's 1,000 millimeters a second. So you're going to have a really fast printer on your hands. I would recommend getting used to it, maybe on the A1 first before you jump up on this upgrade. But it seems like this is coming out, and there's a lot of people behind this. I think it's going to be a great project for BambuLab. I think they're going to do great things with this printer. I think this will be a good all-around system. It's got a lot of nice features on it. We're going to go ahead and go to the X1 series. So you got the X1E, you got the X1C. So they both are completely enclosed. You've got the 10 by 10 by 10 inch print bed, which is 256 by 256 by 256 millimeters. So you're looking at the same size as the P1 series and also the A1 series. It's the same size. You're going to get the enclosure with it, but it's got hardened steel extruders. You're going to have the embedded system. Pretty much all the hardware of this is going to be it's more of the top of the line hardware in the building of this compared to the P1 series. That seems to be the only difference. I've got a P1S at work, and I've also got an X1E at work, and I print on those. They both seem to do really well. I've not had any issues with the P1S, nor have I had anything go on with the X1E. So I would recommend going with the P1S over the X1C currently, just because I've not seen much difference in them since I've been printing for 6 months. Maybe it's the wear and tear that gets to it, but I've not really seen much of a difference on them. I think the X1 series has better camera quality, so there is that to look at, but if you're not really doing much with the camera or doing any of the time-lapse videos, maybe you don't need that. So it's just something to keep in mind there. Like I said, I've got the P1S at work, which is the enclosed system. It's still 256 by 256 by 256 millimeters for the bed. It's still got the enclosure. It's still got the exhaust. I can still get, I don't think it goes up to max temperature like the X1E does. So if you're printing with higher quality filament, maybe you're going to want the higher tool head or the heat for that. Let's just see here. It doesn't really say. Well, you've got a lot of different options here. You got ABS. You can do PETG, TPU, PVA, PET. I've done PETG. I've done PLA, TPU. It does a lot of those. The AMS, I will say the AMS does not support the TPU. So if you do like to print TPU, you'll want to print that on the side, so it'll be on a separate entity. It won't be on your AMS. So just be aware of that. Also with the AMSs, with those systems, you'll definitely want to get the BambuLab or a hardened enclosed filament. So your filament, you don't want the cardboard rolls of filament. They don't typically work with the AMS because they bend and they snap while in the AMS. It torques down on them pretty hard and bends the edges, and then you wind up having misprints and your filament's not loading. And I've done a lot of Elegoo. I buy a lot of Elegoo filament, but recently I've been buying a bunch of BambuLab filament just because of the AMS. So that is something to also be aware of. The AMS Lite, however, it does not have that same system. So the AMS Lite, it's not enclosed, but your filament, you can definitely use the Elegoo cardboard if you've used that before, if you're familiar with it. That's really good AMS Lite system. I really enjoy my A1 at home, and I definitely enjoy the AMS Lite system on those. I've got the AMS system for the P1S and the X1E, and we typically make a lot of dual color prints. We don't typically do a lot of the single colors, but we typically do 4 color prints, but we do a lot of 2 colored prints to make signs at work. And typically the 2 colors works really well. It also has the feature of if your print is over 1,000 kilograms, it'll automatically go to the next spool that has the same color listed. Now you have to set that up originally with the AMS unit, so you have to make sure that before you start a new print that you do go in and make sure it checks the sensor on BambuLab filament, or you have to manually input that it's PLA, it's the same color, or whatever filament you're using. You want to definitely put all the information you can in it so that it has all the records of that. It doesn't really update unless you have the BambuLab filament on the AMS. I think the AMS Lite also does the update, but I don't typically buy the BambuLab filament. It's a little more expensive than what I found on Amazon. As far as the A1 goes, you're looking at the same size build volume as the P1S and the X1 series. You're looking at 256 by 256 by 256. You still got the steel and extruded aluminum chassis. You've got hardened steel extruder gears, your nozzles stainless steel, your max temperature is 300 degrees Celsius. You're typically going to have the same nozzle diameters. Typically, your filament's going to really play a big role on what your nozzle diameter is. Some of them will work with the 0.2 millimeters, but a lot of them like the 0.4 or 0.6 millimeter range there. As far as this goes, your max build plate temperature is 100 degrees Celsius. You've got a max tool head speed of 500 millimeters a second, so it looks like the H2D is twice as fast on there. Typically, you don't run your printer up to 500 millimeters a second every time you print. It's really not good for it. You really want to make sure that you run it at a normal speed. You're looking at probably 250 millimeters a second to 300 millimeters a second. You'll have to do a little more maintenance if you run it that fast, but it does allow you to run faster than other printers. My very first printer was an Ender 3, and I think it was running at 50 millimeters a second, so it's way faster than that. Most of my prints are double or triple speed. It runs really well, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. The A1, practically tells you when it needs maintenance, so you don't have to worry about setting timers, setting calendar dates. It'll tell you when it needs greased. It'll tell you when the axis needs greased or oiled. It'll tell you which one needs grease and oil. You're definitely going to have a real good time starting off with the A1 or the A1 Mini. Now, the A1 Mini is a little cheaper. The A1 Mini starts at $249, and the A1 series is $399. With the AMS Lite series, you're going to look at probably $200 extra on top of that. I think it's about $200 the last time I checked. So you're looking with an A1 combo, it's more like $600, and with the A1 Mini combo, you're looking at $450. I do recommend getting the AMS Lite system with these when you first purchase them. Later on, it's a little more expensive than the $200. On top of that, it's more of a shipping thing for them, but you're definitely going to want the 4-color filament. It does really, really great for what I'm doing for my prints, and it really helps me out switching colors and not having to switch it out in and out one at a time like I've been in the past. As far as the A1 Mini goes, if you're not worried about the print volume, the A1 Mini has a 180 millimeters by 180 millimeter by 180 millimeter build volume, so it is quite a bit smaller. You're looking at more like 6 inches, 5 to 6 inches. It's somewhere in that range. So your print volume is about 5 to 6 inches on all 3 dimensions. That's the main difference between the A1 and the A1 Mini. The other difference is the A1 has 2 aluminum extrusion sides, when the A1 Mini only has the 1 arm. So the A1's a little more durable, I would say, in that aspect. You're also going to have some issues with the Bambu Handy app. A lot of times when I had my A1 Mini and I didn't have the A1, I was having a lot of issues with the app. Sometimes prints wouldn't allow me to be able to print their print because they hadn't set up for the A1 Mini. And sometimes they were just too big for it to handle because it had such a small build volume. Now, it did the job for a lot of things and a lot of projects I had, but as far as it kind of didn't get me everything that I wanted from the Bambu Handy app. I was able to do a lot more things when I switched to the A1. The A1 now, every print that's on the Bambu Handy app I can do. Now the H2D is now out, and a lot of people are going in with that. So there will be a couple prints that the A1, the P1 series, and the X1 series won't be able to print because it'll be a little bit larger of a volume there. Now you can always scale it down, but sometimes will mess with the fittings, and you won't be able to do what you need with those prints. So just keep that in mind. But I do recommend going with like the A1 Mini series or the A1 when you first start out. They're on the cheaper end. They're a lot user friendly. There's a big community out there. There's a lot of you can print and go with the Bambu Handy app. It's just very friendly for new beginners when you come into the 3D printing world. I do recommend the BambuLab items. Their software's comparable to Prusa. The Prusa sliceware is I will say is a little better, but it's not as user friendly. I think the Bambu Handy, the Bambu slicing software is definitely more user friendly than Prusa, but Prusa has a little bit more features and they seem to work a little better. But I will say definitely the BambuLab has definitely got the market cornered on new beginners when they're starting out 3D printing, and I do recommend starting with the A1 Mini or the A1. But I think that's all I've got for you today, so thank you for watching, and hopefully you watch some more of the videos coming out here soon. Thank you. Bye.